Welcome back. In the last video, we talked about what SLDs are and why we prefer to speak about differences rather than difficulties or disorders. Now let's dive a bit deeper, because one of the most important things to understand about neurodiversity is this: it doesn't come in neat little boxes. Let's start with a term that's important here: comorbidity. That simply means that many people don't just have one learning difference. They have traits or even diagnoses of several. That's why more and more researchers and educators now talk about neurodiversity as a whole, instead of separating everything into strict categories. Because it's becoming clear that very few people are only dyslexic, or only have ADHD, or only autistic traits. In reality, many people have a unique mix of characteristics from different conditions. This doesn't mean everyone is neurodivergent, but it does mean the boundaries between conditions aren't always so clear-cut. So, for example, someone with dyslexia may also have ADHD. A person with autism may also show signs of ADHD or dyslexia. And many people with ADHD also have characteristics of autism. These conditions often overlap, and that can make them harder to recognize. One set of traits can mask or amplify another. It's also important to know that these conditions are not all or nothing. They exist on a spectrum. This means you might meet a student who only shows a few mild signs of dyslexia, or a student whose autism makes social communication extremely challenging, or a learner with ADHD who's not hyperactive at all, but really struggles to stay organized. Every person is different. Every brain is different. Now, you've probably heard someone say something like, "Well, don't we all have a little bit of ADHD?" Or, "I can't spell either. Maybe I'm dyslexic too." It's true that many people share some traits found in these conditions. But here's the key point. Having a trait is not the same as having a condition. Let's take ADHD. Everyone has moments when they feel distracted or restless. But for someone with ADHD, this isn't just a moment. It's how their brain works every day, in almost every situation. It affects school, work, friendships, and daily life. The same goes for dyslexia or autism. You might struggle with spelling, but that doesn't automatically mean you're dyslexic. You might dislike small talk, but that doesn't mean you're autistic. To truly understand these conditions, we need to look at the frequency of the traits, the intensity, and how much it affects daily functioning. Let's briefly look at how common these three conditions are, keeping in mind that most cases go undiagnosed. Dyslexia, estimated to affect around 10 to 15% of the population. It's the most common learning difference, especially in language-based tasks. ADHD affects about 5 to 7% of children and around 4 to 5% of adults. But many adults were never diagnosed as children, especially women and girls. Autism affects roughly 2 to 3% of the population. The rates are rising as awareness and diagnosis improve. And again, most experts, including the British Dyslexia Association and the BBC, estimate that over 80% of neurodiverse students go through school undiagnosed. So what does this mean for us as language teachers? It means that if you have a group of 10 or 15 students, there's a very good chance that at least one or two of them have an undiagnosed difference that is affecting how they learn, how they speak, and how they interact in class. You may already know who they are without realizing why they're struggling. That's why understanding comorbidity, spectrums, and the complexity of these conditions is so important. Not to label anyone, but to teach in a way that reaches all kinds of brains. In the next section, we'll dive into each of the three conditions: dyslexia, ADHD, and autism, one by one. You'll learn what to look for and how these differences often show up in language learning classrooms. The Optimo project has been co-funded by the European Union.